Do you want to learn how to get healthy, perform at your best, and create body composition changes that last? In this podcast, we're going to talk about all things fitness, nutrition, health, and mindset. You're going to learn how to create real results, and most importantly, how to maintain those results in the long run. I'm Johan Vesters.
I'm Christine Nandali.
And you're listening to Talking Nutrition. What's up, guys, and welcome back to Talking Nutrition, episode 17 today. The truth about fitness trackers. Are they bullshit or accurate?
Bullshit.
We'll find out. Let's find out. No, I think right off the bat, I want to say, like, we're not here to trash fitness trackers. Like, we're both using them, and we have used a bunch of them in the past. We both think they're great. But hey, it's a catchy title, No, like, I think there's a lot of good stuff out there these days. We got Whoop, which is what I'm currently using. We got Oura Ring. Have you used that?
Mm-mm.
No? I kind of want to get one.
I use the Whoop.
Wow. Okay, yeah. We got FitBit, of course, which is like the one that kind of made the 10K steps like famous,
Yeah.
Garmin, I think that's what you got, right? Garmin?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. So, I mean, the list goes on. There's a bunch of different ones, and they're all pretty much fine. Like, they're all fine. Like, they're a little bit different, but they do have one thing in common. That is that they're not that great at tracking calories burned. So as you already know, we never exercise to burn calories, like, of course it counts, but that's not our goal here. That's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the research. So what the research says about how accurate trackers really are. Trying to be too fast there. Why it's a problem for weight loss. And then we're going to get into using your tracker the right way and how we kind of use it with our clients, because there is definitely a time and a place for your tracker. Don't get rid of it. And then we're going to talk about managing energy balance without tracking calories burned, right? Because remember, we have that equation, calories in, calories out. How would you even manage that without knowing calories out? We'll get into that. Now, let's see. Anything else? Not really. I think I just want to jump right into it, but just right off the bat, again, know that we're not against them. Know that there's a lot of differences. They all have that one thing in common. And I think as well, if you use two different ones, put one on each wrist, you're going to get two different readings, right?
Yeah, have you done that?
I haven't. No, actually, I have with the Fitbit and my Whoop. Yeah. Okay. Once. I remember now. I forgot about that. Yeah, I have. What about you?
I haven't done it, no.
I think Sam Miller did a Whoop Oura Ring comparison kind of thing. I have to go back to that podcast. I remember he did something like that. I'm curious because they're both great, I think.
Yeah. Sorry, just do you ever choke on your own spit? Because there's times where I'll choke on my own spit and literally have a choking attack. That almost just happened. Oh, okay.
Almost every reel that we post and you're talking, I see myself drinking water in between.
Same. I'm
for that reason, Yeah. You gotta keep sipping, I
know.
Shit. No.
Okay, so
you're good.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm gonna talk a little bit about some studies here, basically starting from 2016 to 2022. So they're almost similar, right? But essentially what happens here is that every year or so, new generations of fitness trackers come out. And so they have, did you hear that? Did you hear that ding?
Yeah, okay. A little. It's not bad at all. It's in the background. No one's going to notice.
So they have to kind of, keep testing these, right? And I think it's good to do so. But in 2016, a study looked at the accuracy of the Apple Watch, Fitbit charger, Samsung G, and Myo Alpha. I don't even know what Myo Alpha is. Do you? Okay. Nope. To measure heart rate and energy expenditure. All four accurately measured heart rate with a small error. However, energy expenditure turned out to be anywhere from 9 to 43% off, which is a big range.
Yeah.
and then in 2020, a systematic review including Apple Watch. I mean, there's a bunch I don't know here. Empatica, Fitbit, Garmin, Jawbone, Myo, Misfit. So now there's like way more, right? Samsung, Under Armour, whatever. There's a bunch here. Different brand. The difference between brands' heart rate and step count turned out to be accurate. So pretty much same type of thing. However, this was not the case for energy expenditure again. So the most recent study looked at more recent released wearables. So the Apple Watch 6, Polar Vantage V, and Fitbit Sense. While they did find at measuring heart rate, all three did not do well in terms of energy expenditure. There's a trend happening here. So average of 15 to 25% error, which is pretty big. And then a final systematic review in 2020 came to the conclusion even the newer fitness trackers cannot be trusted if we're talking calories burned, right? So at the end of the day, we can't put too much emphasis here because it's really just not accurate.
Yeah.
There's a massive margin of error here. 15 to 25% on the energy expenditure. So when I use, my Garmin, I'm really only using it for steps. I don't even look at the calories burned. I know there are some people out there that they're not necessarily putting a ton of emphasis on the calories burned in terms of like, oh, I can eat this amount because I burned this amount, but they like to compare it day to day, which I think is okay, right?
Oh yeah.
But if you're putting so much emphasis on it to the point of like you're changing up your nutrition, or you're letting it like dictate how hard you worked in a workout, that's not going to be a good thing because you can end up, eating way over in a surplus. And then, it really just isn't a good indication of your effort necessarily put into a workout. I mean, that's my opinion, right? It's just not going to be accurate for that.
Yeah, I totally agree there. I think that that's exactly how I think about it too. Like if you have the same measure like every time, then it's okay. You can at least compare. It's the same with skills and all that stuff. Like sure, right. Even if we look at the body fat skills, those tend to be like pretty, even like the expensive ones are very inaccurate.
Yes.
That's okay. Because if you use the same one in the same conditions, you at least have a measure to look at, And that's the thing. Okay, cool. Whether you are burning 3,000 calories or it's actually 3,200 or 2,800, whatever, at least you can compare if you have that same tracker, same conditions and all that. So I do think like that's okay as well,
Right.
For sure. But what does that mean for like weight loss? If we have that 15%, 25%.
Yeah. So say if your maintenance is at like 2,000, right? Maintenance calories is 2,000, but your tracker says it's 20% more, like 2,500. You might be basing your deficit off of 2,500 if weight loss is the goal, which would mean that instead of a deficit, you'll be eating, at maintenance or potentially in a surplus. So this could be a reason that you're actually not making progress fat loss wise in a deficit if you're basing it off of the numbers on your tracker.
I remember mine usually says around 3,000 something, and a couple of weeks ago it was like 4,000. I was like, I'm not eating 4,000, or I'm not burning 4,000 calories.
No,
I was losing weight, but I was eating I've been about 2,200. I'm reversing now, so it's higher already.
Mm-hmm.
It was the very end of the cut. That would have been a huge deficit,
Right.
I would have been starving, like losing a lot of weight, and it's just not the case.
Right.
And before we got on, you brought up a very good point, and it's that the tracker doesn't know about past diet attempts and BMR and stuff, right?
Yeah. So when you're looking at calories burned, like that's talking about your metabolism, right? And so when we look at metabolism, your fit, it's quite literally impossible for the fitness tracker to be accurate because it cannot take into consideration BMR, so your basal metabolic rate, which is the biggest factor in your metabolism. It can't take into consideration thermic defective food, which is the third biggest factor. Can't tell how much you're burning through, digesting food. And it also, like, there's different things that influence, BMR and metabolism, and that's, past dieting history. It's potentially medications you're on, stress, things like that. So it's just quite literally impossible for it to be accurate, and why we should not be putting too much weight into it.
Yeah. And to make it even more complicated, like your body can get more efficient or inefficient with burning calories, basically.
Yes, it's
right?
never like a stagnant place, really.
Yeah. So
it's not like you're burning 2,000 calories every single day, right? It's going to fluctuate depending on what you're doing.
And that's this thing that a lot of people, like, you'll see this online where people will say energy balance is not true. It doesn't work. I mean, sure, if we're gonna say that energy balance is just exercise and just food, like, sure, like, then, like, that wouldn't work. But that's also not energy balance. Like, there's so much. It's not just like two things, and there's way more going on. Like you said, we got thermic effect, we got NEAT, exercise, BMR. That's calories out. And then there's calories in. Then there's a difference between what you actually consume and then absorb. So, I mean, honestly, we could talk about calories burned as much as we want, but we're not going to know.
Or like the two camps, right? So people are like, okay, it's only calories in, calories out. And then people are like, oh no, it's only hormones, right? Like there's like this constant debate between these two. And the thing is you cannot look at calories in, calories out, TDE, BMR without hormones, because hormones influence things like BMR. Right. Yeah. So it's like you quite literally cannot separate the two.
Yeah. And that's even when we look into thyroid issues and PCOS. And
yeah, your tracker can't tell if you have thyroid issues and PCOS.
Yeah, or menopause. Like,
yeah,
I think a lot of people get the idea, and they're not wrong for this, but they get the idea that those hormonal changes are the reason they cannot lose weight. But it does boil down again to calories burned, right? And that's also why, unfortunately, some people with PCOS or thyroid issues, when fat loss is the goal, unfortunately, we might have to diet on much lower calories than usual. And that's already hard, but that would be, long story short, that would be because those hormones are influencing calories burned.
Yes. You cannot separate the two.
And calories in too. Because if we look at cortisol, like, hey, some people undereat, some people overeat. That's going to affect energy balance.
Right.
I mean, there's so much going on there,
Yeah, totally.
But again, I really like fitness trackers. I've been using them for such a long time. I got my old school step tracker right here. There we go.
I actually have mine on. I use this.
Oh, you got one too?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Which I'll talk about in a second. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I've been using that one because that's the only thing that Whoop is really missing, in my opinion. Like, why is there no step tracker on this thing? But okay, like how would you use it the right way? Because they are great. There's a lot of good functions, and I will say I'm not affiliated with Whoop or anything. I just really like it myself. But the number one thing I look at is sleep, first of all. So we'll talk about kind of like how you can use yours in general, but like I'd like to share my experience too, because the thing I really like there is that with Whoop you have a sleep journal. and you can literally choose questions or habits basically. And every morning you get asked like, hey, did you do this? Yes or no? Did you take your magnesium? Yes or no? Did you breathe, meditate, whatever it might be? There's a whole list to pick from. And when you do that, and over time, let's say a couple of weeks, months, you start to see, hey, how does this affect my sleep? Something might really help in terms of like, for example, magnesium. That's huge. Like that's the one that for me like has been one of the biggest ones, and I know that. So now I'm not tracking it anymore, but I saw a big difference there. Over time, I saw, oh shit, when I don't take it versus when I do take it, it's actually a big difference. Same with reading, which is a big one for me too. So many things, other supplements like L-theanine. I checked. I think there's a few. I think where I did meditation, like journaling, reading, a bunch. But long story short, you can actually start to find out and do a little bit of your own research, like on yourself, of hey, okay, we have all this stuff that's supposed to help with sleep, both quality and quantity. Now let me figure out what I can do to improve mine. And that's super cool, I think, because it might be way different from person to person. I think you mentioned this a while ago where you said like you can just fall asleep like staring at your phone, right? Or wasn't that you?
No, that was not me.
Oh shit! I
No.
really thought it was you. Shit!
No.
I remember someone said that. They were like, "Hey, like I know the blue light kind of like is supposed to like, keep you awake, but I just pass out, when I watch
Yeah.
YouTube videos." I really thought it was you. Sorry, my bad. But that's for sleep. You can really start to see, hey, am I going to bed at the same time? Am I waking up consistently, etc. Now, steps, of course, we're very big on steps. And I'm sure that you're going to bring this up too in a sec with your new step tracker or old, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's the number one way for us to kind of like manage our overall movement, right? Is it really 10,000 steps or is it like 1,100 or sorry, 11,000? Who knows? It's probably at least a little inaccurate, but at least we have a measure there, of, hey, does it say that you're moving like 2,000 steps? And we could probably bring that up, On the other hand, if you're already hitting 10, 11, 12, whatever, okay, then we know that NEAT is taken care of, the biggest chunk of your, TDEE. Now, for things like heart rate zone training, I do think it can be very beneficial. I'm not as experienced with that myself. However, now that my cut, and I'm literally just saying this for accountability, now that my cut is over, I'm going to start doing cardio, which I really hate, but okay. This week is going to be my first session in a very long time, a week of this recording. And I do think as well, another thing, body temperature, I do only know that the Oura ring does that. I'm not sure if any other wearables do that as well. But that could be a very good one, especially if you're not on hormonal birth control, of course, women, because that way you could actually track ovulation, right? Yep. So that could be another good one too. But we never look at calories burned. But let's go back to your tracker. I'm curious now.
Yeah, so I have two things here. So I used to wear the Whoop. So you really like it for sleep, but that was actually one of the reasons I stopped wearing the Whoop. So I wore it for years training. And I really liked it, for a period of time. And I liked the HRV and all of that. But by the end of me wearing it, I think it could have been like where I was too, within my season of transitioning from competition to not. But I started like really being more in tune with myself, my body as a whole. And it would tell me that like I had a poor night's sleep when I didn't feel like that at all. And like I would wake up feeling good, ready to go. And it would tell me like my recovery was crap. And like, I think there is, it still can be, right? Like you feel good, but recovery might not be as good. And like, but I really was like transitioning into more of like just basing things off of how I felt. And so, yeah, I do think there was like inaccuracies there with sleep and with the HRV. Um, so it started to get into my head a little bit. And so when it started to get into my head, I was like, no, like this is not worth it for me. Like I'm not going to put so much emphasis on this, you know, tracker thing that I don't even know that is 100% accurate, right? So
Yeah.
I stopped using it for those reasons and I just went off of how I felt, you know, whether I felt like I had a good sleep, waking up, how's my recovery, you know, soreness, fatigue, that kind of stuff. Um, and then, so I never used it again, but it's not to say that I don't think it's good. Like I have clients who use it. So you know, I am not opposed to it by any means. And then with my Garmin, so I wore my Garmin for a long time. Um, and I was just using that for steps. And then again, I've kind of like got into this like season where I want to disconnect more, just from like the computer, my phone, the TV, electronics in general. Like I just want to disconnect and be on nothing essentially. So I stopped wearing my Garmin. And because I was basically only using it for style points and my steps, I got this pedometer and I did compare it. So this pedometer is definitely more accurate. And it's because, you know, when it's on your wrist, you're moving around and all day, right? Depending, like I'm a hand talker or like I'm doing stuff with my hands, it's counting that as steps. With this, I just clip it onto my pants and I was like, holy crap, like this is like definitely less than what my Garmin was saying. But if anything, like I would rather it be less than overestimating. But
Yeah.
I do but I do believe that this pedometer is definitely more accurate. And I just wanted to not wear my watch for a while because of like EMFs and stuff. Like I don't know if anyone knows about this stuff, but like I just want to be disconnected from that. Um so that's my thoughts there. I think that even, you know, I put so much emphasis on the Garmin for so long with steps, there's still inaccuracies there. But it's again, it's not like I would say I'm never going to use the Garmin. Like it's still a really good thing to use to track your steps.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to kind of like take a break from it. So yeah, that's just my story in terms of the Whoop, why I stopped using it. Um, and just different inaccuracies you can see
Yeah.
with either of them.
Yeah. And I think that's actually a really good approach. And I'd say that's a good way to go about any type of metric that's objective, right? So we, as coaches too, I think sometimes we can get really, because we're both very big on macros and steps and all that,
Mm-hmm.
which is to teach. And the
Right.
goal is actually to get you better doing without afterwards, right?
Right.
It's not necessarily like, hey, you know, you're going to track your steps forever. It's more like, hey, you know, we're doing this now so that you get more active, so that it becomes a habit, so that you are just someone who walks more, you know?
Right.
Um, Same for tracking and all that good stuff. Anytime you realize that you did the right thing, you said, hey, you know, I notice this now, you know, I'm going to kind of take a step back from it, see how I do. You like it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, of course, there is something to be said about, hey, you know, sometimes with weight loss and stuff, like trying to avoid the scale when weight loss is the measure or the goal, and then we can measure. And I do think sometimes we need to work through those things and get uncomfortable and be okay with that a little bit, you know,
Totally.
and to see the measure for what it is. It's just a measure, it's not the goal. But then also when we learn from it, it's okay to step away from it, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to use it less. And if you are aware of how it makes you feel, you can base it off that, and that's way more important
Yeah.
because you don't have to keep using it. And if you notice, like, hey, I feel great, but my recovery score sucks, are you gonna let that number then decide the day, or are you just gonna go off
Right.
how you feel? You know?
Exactly. Yeah.
So how would you go about like managing energy balance and without tracking, whether that's bulking or, etc. Weight loss.
Yeah, so without tracking calories burned is what he meant. Um
Yeah, yeah.
so I
Sorry, yeah.
mean, yeah, so I mean, we do this every single day with clients. So we control the amount of calories the client's eating. I mean, us too, and really just get as consistent as possible with that. Um, and then tracking steps is another one, right? So easily track steps with a pedometer or your Garmin or anything like that. And then we track body weight, like body weight in averages. So we take, okay, 3 to 7 days a week, weighing in, and we track the average of that week, or like we look at monthly averages, and then measurements and photos. Same type of thing, just to see how you're progressing, right? From the control of calories, the tracking of the steps, exercise, things like that. And then, like I just said, we see how you're moving over the course of, a long period. It's hard to know if you're in a surplus or if you're at maintenance or if you're in a deficit without having like weeks or months of data. I mean, I guess you could say, well, I'm gaining body fat, I must be in a surplus, but we still, with maintenance and the deficit, we would need, you know, uh, data over time in order to see that.
Yeah. Because you actually don't know. There's not like a sign that turns on like, oh, you're in a
Yeah,
deficit,
you don't. Yeah.
No. Plus then there's the body kind of working against you. Not even like working against you. It's just kind of like doing its thing, it's adapting. It's
Yeah.
burning fewer calories, burning more calories. So yeah, good point. Like you do want to look at the like longer term trends.
Yes.
And really again, like with the calories burned, like we're just not gonna know, and that's okay. But like don't put too much emphasis on that number, because I think it can really hold you back. And you said it already. You said, what if your expected maintenance based on, what if your tracker says like 2,500, but you're basing your deficit off that, which brings you to 2,000, which would actually be your maintenance. Like,
Right.
you'd be like working really hard,
Mm-hmm.
but not seeing any results,
Yeah.
That's a big difference. 15%, 20%, 25%, whatever. Sure, they're getting better, but that's still huge. And that's
Right.
still way too much to
Mm-hmm.
base your energy balance on. And we don't know that,
And a lot of people too will get upset if they don't hit like a certain amount of calories burned in their workouts, which I
Yeah.
think it's just not a good mindset to be in, right?
No,
Because again, it's you're basing effort off of something that is not even accurate, like
Yeah.
at all. So I mean, easier said than done, but like if I had a client who was, putting too much emphasis here, first I would educate them on like why this isn't accurate. But also I would probably just encourage them to take their watch off, during their workout and really just focus on the quality of their reps and their effort they're putting in.
Yeah. Which might even give you a more realistic view of your need, because then that tracker is just the rest of the day.
Right. Yeah, that's something that people often with NEAT, they don't realize like what, like it's, I mean, this is getting like nitpicky, but when we're tracking steps, we're tracking outside of exercise. So if you go on a run, that does not count as NEAT. NEAT is non-exercise activity, right? So we're wanting to measure how much movement you're doing outside of the gym, because you could be working out for an hour or running for an hour and then sitting down the rest of the day, and that's, you can still be technically sedentary because you're not moving the rest of the day. So that is why we track steps, or we track NEAT is because we want to make sure we're moving throughout the rest of the day. I will sometimes leave my watch on by accident or something when I go for a run. Then I'll just look at my watch and be like, oh, and then I'll look at my watch at the end and minus that many steps off and just make sure I'm still hitting, 8 to 10K outside of that run.
Yeah. And that is a way better kind of method, I guess, of tracking steps. And something that I might even start applying like with some people, where I would say, hey, like when we're training, let's actually take it off. Mm-hmm. But like you said, it really depends. Like for most people, we wouldn't even have to do that.
Yeah. I mean, it's getting nitpicky, but the point of steps is NEAT.
Yeah.
Is tracking
that's
NEAT.
The thing. Yeah. I had a check-in on Monday. Yeah. This Monday. And we're talking about NEAT and steps. And I was like, hey, let's get the steps up a little bit more. We're towards the end of a cut. Mm-hmm. I think I see the steps going down. Let's bring them up again. Let's hit that 10K every day. Like, let's try, I know it's a little challenging, but let's go for that. He's like, oh, you'll add a run. I was like, no.
Yeah.
Let's not do that, because the point here, and that's a big takeaway here, is that we do that without the added stress response of exercise. That's the whole point. It's the additional movement in a parasympathetic state without stress, so that we get to manage stress. We get all the benefits there too. But I don't know. I feel like we're almost like wired like that, Yeah. And it's going back to the calories burned and heart rate and stuff. Something like an activity doesn't have to be, and we both come from CrossFit, like we're very familiar with this, but like it doesn't have to be like you dying on the floor, like rolling in your own sweat. Like, I mean, sweat is another thing that's just thermal regulation. It's not a stamp of approval that you had a good workout,
No, yeah.
Like I do get it. I know that feeling too.
I love sweating. So I know people are gonna be like, well, I do too. I love sweating.
It's cool. It's cool. Yeah. That's the thing. But like, what I am saying is that doesn't have to be the case every single time.
Oh no. Like I do my bodybuilding workouts and I am like, oh my gosh, like I am dying in my workout, but I'm not sweating at all. Yeah. And then I walk away feeling, really good. I don't walk away feeling like I'm trashed, but in my workout, I'm like, it's very challenging, but I'm not sweating. But does that mean I didn't get a good workout in? No.
And this is where Whoop also, with the strain stuff, it's more kind of like the higher intensity stuff, because if I compare like a CrossFit workout, then when I switched to like bodybuilding stuff, way different.
Were you in the green like every day?
I was like, yeah, exactly. I have like super low strain. I was like, I'm lifting weights. I'm doing my fucking best here,
Yeah.
But my strain is so low, I don't get it. My green scores were like all over the place, like 99% shit, I was like, oh shit, And then I actually read up on it a little bit more, and I was like, oh yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. It's not as much like if you resistant train, sorry, like we can't really go off that strain metric either, Mm-hmm. But okay, a lot of good stuff today. What do you think? Wrap it up?
Yeah.
Cool. So guys, fitness trackers are not useless by any means. Track your sleep, your steps, maybe body temperature, heart rates, if you want to do like heart rate zone training or, compare, maybe HRV. But I mean, for calories burned, it's just not that accurate. So try not to train for that reason, right? We do our exercise, we lift weights, we do cardio, etc., because we want to get healthier, better, bigger, stronger, faster, etc. That's the stuff we want to focus on. We want to improve, right? Not necessarily just burn as many calories as possible. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening. If you want to help us grow the show, please make sure to leave us a 5-star rating or share this episode on your Instagram stories. Now, if at any point you feel like you need more help, you can always reach out to Christine or myself directly via any of the links in our show notes, because we're here to help. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.